Welcome, everybody, to episode 36 of Thrashcast, where we will be deep diving into the Testament album, The New Order. I want to start off. There it is there. Wicked. Wicked. And that one's signed, it looks like.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. I want to welcome my co-hosts, Billy and Ken. How are you guys this evening?
All good.
Yeah, we're all good.
Great. Well, we want to thank everybody who's been, 36 episodes in. We obviously couldn't do this without all our viewers and listeners out there. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And where to find us for anybody new, Horror Metal Sounds on YouTube. That's keng.2864. We're also available on Spotify. And we're also available on Rumble, correct, Ken?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. So we want to thank everybody for their, we want to get our views up there. We want to be able to get our algorithm going. So make sure you're tuning in. And if you have any comments, we would love the likes, comments, any future show ideas, throw them out there. We'd absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So we'll get right into the news and what we're spinning. It's that segment of our show. So, hey, Billy, why don't you take it away with some news items and what you're listening to this week?
Yeah, so two news items. Both I just sort of discovered by accident yesterday or today. So I was at the Havoc Exodus show last night, and they talked about the new Havoc EP that came out like 2 weeks ago. And I don't know, maybe you guys knew about it, but I didn't know about it.
I knew about it.
So yeah, it's called New Eyes.
Yep.
And it's a shame. Like, according to the band, it's independent. So that would mean they got dropped from their label, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
or they chose to separate, but so I mean, they played 3 tracks from there. It was really cool. It looks like the 4th track, I looked it up today, is a Metallica cover from Justice for All, Eye of the Beholder. Didn't actually listen to it, but it's on my I downloaded it, and they actually were selling the EP at the show, but the way they do it is they had the one lineup for all the bands, and so Exodus was all around the venue, and so I would have had to wait in line for an hour to get that Havoc EP. So unfortunately I couldn't buy it, but I'll have to pick it up somewhere. But so yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's independent, so they could definitely use the support. So take a look, and the songs came across really good live. So I'm going to assume it's worth it, and a Metallica cover from my favorite Metallica album, so that's a bonus. Second item I had was, I know, Ken, you're a big fan of this, the band The Haunted. It came up a couple times on our previous podcast. They've been doing a lot of social media from the studio. So they're recording the new album, and no album name, no release date, but it's kind of cool to follow along. They were actually showing you, they were trying out all these sounds, like different amps for this album. So like in the studio, that, no joke, they must have had 30 different amps, and the 2 guitarists were plugging into them all and seeing what sound they liked. So that was kind of cool. But again, no band album, no single, no more details. But if you're a fan of The Haunted, then keep your eye out in 2025, because I haven't heard that on anyone's sort of release calendar for 2025, but it sounds like it's going to hit.
It would make sense, right?
Yeah. Okay, so that's it. Just those 2 quick news items, and then I picked up. I was in a gruesome kind of a mood. So I picked
nice.
their EP from 2016. Talk about killer artwork. I don't know if that comes across.
That looks great.
Yeah, it's cool. Is it Ed Repka?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It certainly looks like
because other album cover.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it certainly makes sense. But yeah, I mean, for those who don't know gruesome, I mean, how do you describe them? They're I mean, kind of like a Death cover band to some degree. They certainly sound like Death, more earlier Death for sure. Not like Death like in the progressive era Death towards the end. But I mean, the band stands, there's all their own written material. They're great songs. It sounds great. I've seen Gruesome live a couple times in Europe. They're great. So yeah, yeah, the material stands on its own 100%. But you'd be kidding yourself if you don't say it doesn't sound like early death.
Oh, yeah, totally. They
Yeah,
totally sound like that.
yeah. Especially like leprosy error
Yes,
or
yes.
scream bloody gore, right?
Yep.
Um, yeah, it's funny because before I even knew, before I knew who they were, I was at a Vakken open air and I just strolled in to hear them, and I'm like, "Holy crap, this sounds like death!" And then I saw it said gruesome, and it was only when I got back from the festival did I look it up, and I don't know, that may have been like 16 or 17,
Yeah,
2016.
they've been around for quite a while now.
Yeah, yeah.
And they
So.
have what, 3 albums and 1 EP, I think.
Yeah, or two EPs. So I have
Oh,
all the albums, but then
so do
I see
I.
this there. This was the EP that came after the second album, I think. Or
Yeah,
the first.
Savage Land or something Savage was the first album.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I forget this. The second album has the priest on the cover where they're like
Oh yeah,
in a
yeah.
church, like they're in some kind of a church. Everyone's worshiping. That's a great cover. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And this
Does
cover here is good too. What's
does
that?
Ed Repka do all the gruesome covers?
Yeah, he did them all.
Okay. All right, cool. That's it for me, Jim.
Cool.
Awesome. Ken, what have you got for us?
I got a fun item today.
Wicked.
Um, so I'm going back to Metallica. It's kind of funny. Maybe they're on the Kiss bandwagon now. I don't know. They released, I didn't even know they did. They've actually released a series, a company called Pinball Machines Inc. or Stern Pinball Inc. I should say. They've released Metallica pinball machines. They're all themed. So like they have Justice, Seek and Destroy, Ride the Lightning. It's kind of funny. So they just released this new package, and it's like $1,000 for each little add-ons. You can add on these bells and whistles to the machines. I think it's kind of funny, but it's like, are they following in Kiss's footsteps now? Like trying to pretty much merchandise everything under the sun, like like a Kiss coffin and crazy shit like that. I just thought it was kind of funny. I just came across it recently.
So they're selling the whole like old-fashioned pinball game, like the
Yeah,
giant thing?
yeah. It's like it's basically like a classic pinball machine,
Yeah.
but Metallica themed.
Yeah, okay.
And
I
I think
guess I would have thought it would cost a couple thousand. I don't know.
I
I
think
never
the machines are more than that, but I think it's that they have this package where they're adding on like bells and whistles or things you can add to the machine to
Oh,
fix.
okay.
I don't know. It's what I read, but
Huh.
I mean, all the power to them, right? If you can merchandise your shit and make money from it, I guess that's all that counts. So I
Yeah,
just think it was kind of funny. It's
yeah.
funny item.
I've seen a Metallica pinball machine, like a
Oh,
full
have you?
Metallica one before. Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen one.
Yeah.
I've never seen. I have a bunch of friends who are into pinball machines, but it's not something I was ever really into, even growing up.
Mm.
Going to the arcades, I never got into them.
Yeah, okay. I lived in them.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in the arcade too growing up, so this is way before, Xbox and all that jazz. But I
Yeah.
mean, when I was growing up, I was practically in the arcades here in Toronto all the time.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's just funny. And so for spinning, I'm sort of been inspired by Jim. Jim's been posting all these cassette tapes on Facebook that he's been finding. So I found mine. I have a whole whack of them too, and I was pulling out some. So I pulled out 3 just to like show off.
Recording in progress.
So I have might be hard to see. You okay there?
Once what?
Uh-oh.
Jim's in here twice.
Is that better? Oh, we lost Jim.
Uh,
All right, I'll just continue.
okay, keep going.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, there he is. Okay, he's back. Yay! So yeah, I got these cassettes now. They might be hard to see on the camera, but it's like Disincarnate.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, I love that. This was one of my favorite death metal albums with James Murphy. Of course, we always have like Megadeth and Rust in Peace, which is kind of
Right.
cool. Love that. And then the other one I found, I just pulled this out. It's Destruction's Eternal Devastation and Mad Butcher together. I think it should go. This way.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a great one too. I played this cassette to death, so I don't even know if it's going to play anymore. But yeah, I thought I'd show that off because I thought I was inspired by what Jim was doing. It's kind of fun. I have way more cassettes too, but I have to find them. Like I was telling you, I need to find my my Cold Lake cassette. I know I have it somewhere, but I have so many cassettes. It's crazy.
Have you guys seen like those like modern cassettes that you buy today where the album artwork is actually on the cassette?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks
I've
cool.
seen those.
Yeah, they're cool. Like I bought all the obituary ones like
Oh,
that.
did you?
in
Oh,
Cannibal
nice.
Corpse. They're amazing looking.
Yeah, cassettes are kind of like I guess they're back in. I guess when
Yeah.
vinyl made its return again, cassettes came along with it. I don't know. I guess because in the spirit of the whole tape trading thing back in the 80s, I guess they got back into it, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. I don't know if I would really get into buying a cassette today. Like I mean, if you're a collector of something, sure, makes sense. But
Yeah, I mean, it's aimed after us 50-year-olds with disposable income and jobs, right? Like,
true.
who are stupid to buy them all.
Good point, Billy. Good point. But anyways, that's what I have for this week.
Wicked. Well, sorry about that, guys. I logged in,
worries.
logged out, double. Now it's all perfect. So I'm
back.
all
Okay.
here.
And great shirt, by the way.
Thank you. Came in the mail. Well, last week
Nice.
for the strike.
Okay.
Well, I'm wearing my Testament tonight because it's Testament. So
And Jim,
right.
I can't see, like, I can see the logo, but what's on the shirt itself?
It's World Demise. It's the
oh, nice.
Oh, okay. Cool.
yeah,
Neat.
Yeah, nice.
pretty cool. It was the part of the shows that you got the tickets and then you bought the shirt came with it.
Okay.
The hurricane in Florida, they had no power for so long to ship it out. So they reached out, which was really cool. And I was like, yeah, ship it whenever. I mean, you guys, that's least of your problems is shipping out shirts.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I've got just one quick news item, which kind of I picked up just before the podcast here is, for the Mayhem fans out there, sounds like Necro Butcher has said they've got like 20 songs already kind of ready to go for another album. So I guess they're doing an Australian tour and then they're going to start going into the studio in March of 2025. And they're hoping to have an album out before the end of 25, but for sure in 26. So all the main fans out there will be flipping out. There's new material on the way.
And guys, what happened? Did that Mayhem tour get all canceled, or is it just the Canadian show that did?
I think it's a Canadian show.
Was it?
It's a Canadian thing only? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't
hear.
Yeah. So what I'm spinning this week is I got a couple of things. I picked up, I've been going through this Black Dahlia murder. Total, I'm buying all their stuff. And one here is called Abysmal. So I'm not really, I wasn't totally familiar. I mean, I knew who they were, but I bought the new album Servitude. And I mean, it's just blown me away.
Okay.
So I went back and I bought all the main albums, and then I'm starting to pick up some of these guys that don't rank as high as the other ones. But this one's actually really cool. It starts off with kind of a piano and a violin kind of on the first song, Receipt. And then it kind of bookends it at the end with That Cannot Die, which internally is dead. It's a really good album. I mean, it's probably towards the back end of their catalog on all the ratings I've seen, but I absolutely love that. Love this band and totally getting into them, which is kind of weird so late in their career, but never really gave them a chance before. So, but their new album.
A new singer on top of that.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. It was like for the new album, and I mean, fit right in. Like without skipping a beat. The new album sounds so good. Mammoth's Hand, the single they have is just fantastic. Probably in my top 5 songs of 2024 so far. And the other one, I actually went to my, with the postal strike going on, although everything tends to get couriered. I went and picked up the re-release of Sodom, Tapping the Vein, which is one of all three of us, one of our favorite bands for sure. And this is a cool release because it's got the 24 remaster on one disc, then it's got another disc of the redo, which is really cool. So I catch myself listening to the remaster and the redo, like one song after another. It's pretty neat. And then the third disc is Alive in Tokyo. And I reached out to you guys, and Billy, I know you have the whole set coming, which is what, 5 or 6?
Let's see. Well, mine's the vinyl, so 3 records, which
Okay,
probably ties to the 3 CDs. But then there's with the vinyl package, there's also 2 CDs,
right.
and I think a DVD. So that's like 5 or 6.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, I probably now wish I would have waited, but the record store guy, he only got one copy in and he kind of put it aside for me. But the Live in Tokyo's 92. It sounds pretty cool. And I know the one you're getting, Billy, will have a ton more live stuff with it, which is really, really neat. But the album art and the setup of the whole thing is, I mean, I thought of you, Ken, as soon as I'm seeing this, and
Yeah,
it's really,
great.
really cool. The CD's really, really well done.
Yeah,
And
I like it. Looks
so
good.
yeah,
So,
so
Jim, how different is the 2 versions of the record? Like
quite
the
a bit.
the redo, like is it drastically different?
I find it drastically different. I kind of like the remaster, so I go to the original and then the remaster, and I was doing that, and then I went to the redo. I found the redo had a lot more. The remaster sounds a lot more vivid and a lot more louder, especially like the bass and a lot of the guitar and that sounds a bit crisper, a bit cleaner. But the redo has kind of weird levels in it. It sounds there's some songs on it that I find the redo were really really good, but I don't know. I like the remaster better than the redo. You know, uh, one step over the line's my favorite track on the song, and I kind of like the redo better on that. But a
Mm.
lot of the real heavy thrashy, I mean, they're all thrashy heavy songs. I find they start off. It sounds a little. Some of the beginnings of the redo for me sounds a little weak. I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I mean, you can stream. I think you can stream both copies on like
Okay, cool.
an
Yeah.
Apple. Yeah.
Like usually the redo is just like Blind Guardian did, right? They
Yeah.
re-recorded it and redid it, right? So it should sound, generally pretty different.
Well, I found the Blind Guardian one. I really liked it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really polished it up quite a bit. But I like the remaster on this better than the redo. But that's just me.
Okay.
Now I've probably listened to it about 6 times, but I'm doing track for track. So I'm
Right, you're
listening.
comparing.
Got a CD changer, so I'm swapping it out. And then just listening to song by song to try to hear all the nuances and the changes. So, but
I
that
don't really generally like redos though. I don't know about that.
I, I'm kind of 50-50, I think.
Okay.
You know, this one here, but I like the fact for $30, it's $40 online on Amazon. So in the record store, it was actually nice to support the record guy, and he only had one copy, but he didn't even know it was a remaster, like it was an older album. He was like, "Oh, is this new?" I was, "Oh no, it's not new, but this is new versions," and it was pretty cool. He's like, "Oh man, but I definitely, I mean, the album artwork in that is pretty cool. And,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth it for the 3 discs that I got. I thought that was pretty cool. $10 a disc. Why not?
Yeah,
And
no,
I'm sure Amazon, they'll probably lower the price after the initial orders go through in that. So pretty cool. But yeah, so that's what I've got this week, and
Cool.
cool stuff there. So we'll get right into Testament, and I actually brought my cassette, my old,
Nice.
as I've been like you guys have been seeing on Facebook. I've been posting. I
Oh,
found 3 boxes up in my attic, much to the chagrin of my wife, who's pissed that I've got these big banker boxes filled with cassettes, dusty cassettes, all in my den. And I'm laying them out, and I'm wiping them down and cleaning them up. But she's like, "My God, what? We still have these?" I'm like, "Yeah."
yeah.
So,
Well, they're cool to have.
oh yeah, and there's a ton of bonsai releases and stuff in there too, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, so I had the obviously the first 3 Testament on cassette, and I've got them on disc, and obviously I'm going to be buying the remaster once they put it. I think they are. Did you guys hear they are eventually releasing the new 2024 on CD? Correct?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I
what
want
I.
to get that too.
Yeah. I mean, the album artwork alone and the book that Billy was showing off there is just really cool. It'll be in a smaller format, but still some really great.
Mm.
Yeah.
but Jim, that So on Practice, though, I don't know if you would get that detailed book, right? Because like when they did this like remaster,
Yeah.
this came out a month after they did the reissue. And
Oh.
the reissue didn't have the book.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
right.
the Practice that you're gonna get is like a reissue. Like this is like the official remaster was a total separate project.
Oh.
The material was given to a different remastering producer and done totally separate.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah, so what's coming out won't have that book or any of those bells and whistles. It's just going to be
Okay.
a reissue.
Okay.
But didn't they already release a Practice remaster yet, or no? Do you guys have they done that?
No, I think like I remember
Okay,
Practice is like one of the hardest like vinyl anyway to get your hands on.
okay, all
So
right.
like it hasn't been
That
redone.
album needs to be remastered for sure. I'd love to see it remastered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the issue, right? Like Testament did the Legacy, they did the New Order. They put out the reissues, right? Which
Mhm.
means re-releasing albums that weren't available.
Right.
And then a month later, they did these special remasters from Sterling
Ah.
Sound. And that pissed everyone off because they just bought the reissue.
Yeah,
And
they got
here
about the
comes the
remaster.
remaster, right? And the remaster is like $60, whereas
Yeah.
the reissue's like $30
Right.
Yeah,
for vinyl, anyways.
yeah.
And the reissues went out in what, 2023?
No, 24. It was like just
Oh, really?
like 1 or 2 months apart.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Everyone bought the reissue, and then boom, the band hit you with, oh, but now we're doing these remasters of the same two albums.
Yeah,
Wow.
but that seems a bit kind of, I don't know. It's too bad they did that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people, like you see the people doing YouTube videos, right? They were like
Yep.
pissed off because they would have waited for the full remaster rather than
Yeah,
buying the issue.
I would have
Yeah.
waited for the remaster too.
But then a lot of people ended up buying both. So, right?
Lesser
Well,
plan
if you're a completist, you have to buy both, right?
yeah. So
So,
as we get into the new order here, I know this is they're reading online. I mean, this is a fan favorite. If it's not a number one by most fans, it's in the top three for sure. And I mean, it's my number one Testament album, and I believe you guys, it's both your guys's, I believe.
yep. Yeah. I had it number one.
Yeah. I kind of figured, but just I'm not going to get into total Testament background of the band, and that is we already did an episode on the Gathering many moons ago. So I'll just go into just some facts with this album. This came out on May 10th of 1988, produced by Alex Perialis, which is actually really interesting because he's done a lot of albums. And Ken, he was in on State of Euphoria for Anthrax,
Yep.
which is pretty
That's
cool.
right.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, gotta rate Ken. Yeah, he's
Yep.
gonna love
Oh, yeah.
that. So Overkill, Nuclear Assault, SOD, Flotsam, all kinds of stuff. So that's pretty neat. They had one single that off this album, which is kind of surprising, which was Trial by Fire. For me, I would have thought it would have been definitely Disciples or maybe Into the Pit. So I kind of figured something like that, but no. The lineup for this album was obviously Chuck Billy on vocals, Alex Skolnick on lead guitar, Eric Peterson on rhythm guitar, Greg Christian on bass, and Louis Clementier on drums. So pretty cool. And the executive producers for this album were the late John and Marcia Zazula.
Yeah,
So
that's
kind
right.
of an interesting factoid as well. So and probably a good reason why this album, is such a great album by the band. Just a couple of quick award facts. 2007 Revolver magazine had it as their top 20 1980s thrash album. 2014 Revolver came out with one of the top thrash albums you need to own of all time. I don't think there's any debate with that. And in 2017 they came out with another list where it's their 18th best thrash metal album of all time. So they just keep going. And in 2018, Decibel magazine inducted this album into their Hall of Fame. So pretty interesting stuff there. And this is a highly touted album for sure. So, you guys have any thoughts on anything with it? Ken, do you have any idea, any information on the album art?
Yeah, it's William Benson. So William, as you know, has done all of their albums pretty much up into Demon. Oh no, he didn't do Demonic. No, the Ritual.
Right.
No, he did everything pretty much from the beginning. So Legacy. He did the Souls of Black. He did this album here. He did the
Right.
Ritual. Yeah, he pretty much did everything up until that point, and then they replaced him with Dave McKean, and Dave McKean, a DC comic book artist, did the Demonic. He did the Gathering, and then the funny thing about that is then they moved over to Eller and Cantor, who did all their modern stuff in the 2000s. So they're a kind of band where they like to stick with one artist, which is good because it does tie in to merchandising that way. So you're able to get like posters and T-shirts and stuff like that out. But yeah, William Benson's a pretty good artist. This is the only thing he's worked with. He hasn't actually worked with any other band, with the exception of Being Testament. And I like all his covers. All the covers are great. He also William also did their logo. He designed the Testament logo, which I consider to be in my top 5 thrash band logos of all time. In my mind, it's such a great logo.
Yeah, yeah. What's
I
your
don't think
thought?
they ever changed it, right? You know how many bands they changed, like Iron Maiden changed the look of the logo through the years. If you look at it carefully, I think Testament's been the same, like beginning to end.
That's right. They've not changed it. You're right. You're right. Which is great.
Changed theirs when they hit load and reload, and then ended up, I think, that was one of the things that pissed me off with those albums.
Yeah, many have changed the logo, not subtly, but many thrash bands have changed along the way.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, guys, on the new on the vinyl version, the new vinyl version? I think it looks pretty smoking cool.
Yeah.
Oh, the here I'll show.
Yeah.
So we were talking about it before, right? So the and more purple versus blue of like the skull, and as Ken pointed out that I missed the first time, there's actually the eyeballs in there, right? If you compare the two, right? So they're pretty different.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And as we were talking, Billy, it looks like William Benson did the art on that too. So it's kind of cool when he came back.
Okay.
We're assuming that anyways, because he's credited as you were looking on the inner sleeve. So,
Yep.
So that's cool. He's a good artist.
Wicked. Well, we'll jump right into the album. We'll start getting into the tracks. So we start off with our track number 1, Eerie Inhabitants. And Ken, why don't you hit us off on track 1?
Yeah, this is a really good song. I like it because of course, for the it's very moody. Like there's a lot of things that they've interjected, and this is also due. I know you didn't bring it up, Jim, but to the fact that when they recorded this album, they did it on the fly because they were
right.
I guess they didn't realize that they were contractor their obligation was to record another album, but they didn't realize because they didn't read the fine print that in the contract it stated that they needed 40 minutes of music, and they didn't have 40 minutes of music when they recorded this album, so they had to go back. And that's how the Aerosmith cover gets on here, and also all the instrumentals and even the beginning bits. They had to add all that on after the fact. So it's kind of interesting. So like here you get that beginning where you get that opening melody with the guitars. It's really moody, and then it just kind of erupts after that, like heavy chugs, and then Chuck just goes into that scream at the start. It's such a great song, and I love the solo. The solo is really good here as well. All the gang shouts, and then this is also written lyrically by Alex, Chuck, and Eric. So it has a very poetic and evocative meaning to it because it's about the whole song's about how they're conjuring up the idea of abandoned places and how creepy atmospheric they become. So I think it's a really cool opening song. I like it. It's dark. It's got like a dark kind of tone to it.
Billy, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, this is my favorite Testament album, so I like everything. But I'm gonna say, like, in terms of songs that are not instrumentals, this is my least favorite
Okay.
on the album, and I also probably would have put this in number two, and reversed the order
Hmm.
with the actual title track.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think kind of Ken hit it right. Alex is a great solo, kind of at the towards 3 minutes. And Alex is he's the band's like secret weapon, right? Like all thrash bands have great guitarists, but when it comes to writing like intros, which, to Ken's point, this has a pretty cool, slower intro. He's very good at that, right? Because he went to the Berklee School of Music. He's a jazz guitarist. He's a classical guitarist. So you get something out of Alex that no one else has. So I think that's pretty cool. And as much as I love The Gathering and that death metal era, I still missed Alex. So yeah, kudos to him. I mean, this track, along with everything else, is the choruses are catchy as hell, right? These are great songs. Many of them are really thrashy, but they're just catchy and hooky, which is one of the reasons I love it so much. But
Hmm.
so yeah, for me, this is a good song. But out of everything with that's a full song and not an instrumental, this is actually my least favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, it's a great. I agree. It probably would have been a better second track on the album because the next track is pretty cool. But I love how at like 250, 251, the song just kind of slows back down and then leads into that killer guitar solo.
Yep.
And I
Hmm.
love how the guitars play off each other. I mean, Chuck's voice, as soon as it cuts in, is just phenomenal on this track. And it's pretty cool. So, no, that takes us into Billy. Why don't you take away on the New Order track two?
Yeah, I know. New Order is great. I mean, this one doesn't have like the extended solo. Like I think in that first track, it was a minute at least that
Yeah.
solo.
Yeah.
So here we just rip out of the gate. This thing just has this like sense of urgency in the music. It's just rhythmically, it's just fast paced. It's really good. Another great chorus. I can't complain there. Chuck shines. I mean, Chuck is so, I mean, we've talked about Chuck, so we're not going to kill that to death, but he's such a great thrash singer, right? Like,
Yeah.
he can sing aggressive, but everything he sings has like a vocal hook to it. Like, he's a main part of the band. Like, I love Chuck's voice. Like, I like the guitar playing, or I like the drumming, right? Like, he's that good from my perspective. And we got a great like Alex solo that kicks in here. It's just a great like perfect thrash song, right? It's aggressive. There's enough melody to keep you there. The hooks, and let's face it, the band's pretty talented as well. So yeah, I think it's a great one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those cool tempo changes are really cool. And at 220 with Chuck's kind of grunt yell that he does is pretty neat. And I love the drums on this. The drums on this track is fantastic. But yeah, this is one hell of a banger of a track. Ken, what do you think?
Man, you guys pretty much said it all. I'll just circle back to the lyrical content because this is like a combination between Alex and Eric, and they're really good together. Obviously, writing the music and also writing the lyrics. But I would agree, with Billy. I think this track probably should have opened the album, and Eerie Inhabitants should have followed because you want to set that tone at the start, and this song obviously sets that tone right from the beginning. And Alex is on fire with the guitars, but then so is Eric. Like everyone's firing on all cylinders here. And I do like the fact that the whole song's about a dystopian future, and they're like discussing the idea of tragedy and how a new order emerges from human tragedy and is pretty much becoming an oppressive state. I think it's a great song. And I mean, just what can you say about it's just such a great song.
And it leads into the third track, Trial by Fire, which is one of my favorite tracks on the album. I mean, that kind of slow guitar intro that kind of leads into like a mini solo, which is pretty good. Then the drums cut in, and then just under a minute, you kind of have the thrash kind of take off. and the bass in this song is so identical. The bass line is just flowing. I mean, and this is another great track with the gang vocals. Ken, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the song a lot. I mean, it's I can see why they decide to have this as the single.
Mhm.
And they did a video for it, which is pretty. The video is pretty cool too.
Yeah,
And I like the fact that they got all three. Like, you got Chuck involved in it in this lyrically, along with Eric, with Alex and Eric. So it's really good, and I like the whole concept of like extreme punishment without like a due process, which I think is kind of interesting. So it's a little bit on the social side of things, not unlike what you would have heard in Justice for All when they were writing their lyrics. But yeah, it's a great song. There's again, we go back to that like moody opening, and the lead off guitar is so sizzling. It's just wow. It's just a banger all the way through. The chugs are great, and the song is just fantastic. I also thought that you could actually hear Greg Christian on bass
yeah,
much more audible in this song too. So, and it's got great chorus, catchy chugs. It's all there. So I can see why they picked this as the single.
yeah. Billy, what do you think of Trial by Fire?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, there's like five. What makes this my favorite song is there's five songs that I think are probably the five best Testament songs they ever wrote. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's just my opinion. But sort of Trial by Fire is the second one. The New Order's one of them. Trial by Fire. I mean, Jim, you literally read my notes, so you and I kind of think alike, and then Ken plugged in everything else. So, but yeah, what I like best is, I mean, the record in general, I would say, has great bass.
Yeah,
Like Greg
Yeah.
is at the forefront, and so he's positioned well in the mix. I mean, everyone says the remaster sounds great, but the original vinyl, the bass sounded fantastic on it. Like it was right in your face. So that's great. And another killer chorus on this thing. It's a staple of the live show. Testament. They played Toronto. What was that? Like a month ago or something, and they ended with this track. I mean, as many times as I've seen them, this has been in most of the shows. So, and I like it sort of at the 2:45 mark where Alex lead, but he continues to do his solo as the song builds and gets heavier. Like it's a cool part of the song. And again, I think Eric's kind of the an unsung hero. He
yeah.
always sort of gets for everyone talks about Alex, but like he's the one who comes up with all these riffs during the songwriting process, right? And so he deserves some kudos as well.
Wicked, wicked. Yeah. Well, you know what? We'll lead into with you, Billy, into the anthemic, into the pit. I mean, wow.
Yeah, so I mean, here we roll again. So I talked about the Magic Five. This is like the third of the Magic Five, another staple of the live. I mean, how could you be a thrash band with a song called "Into the Pit" and not play
Exactly.
that live, right? Like the pit
Yeah.
explodes. It's a mosh pit. And like I always think of this, and Exodus is what's it called?
Toxic Wall.
The what?
Toxic
Toxic
Wall.
Walls.
Yeah, Toxic Waltz. Yeah, I
Yeah.
That's a
just
good
heard it
song
last
too.
night live. So, but yeah, these two songs are like perfect, like 80s thrash, like mosh pit songs. But, it's funny. I mean, I guess I'll say it now. It applies to many of these songs, but I actually like all these songs even more when Chuck sings them like in this age,
Yeah.
because he
Right.
tends to use more of that like deeper growl. I mean, not the gathering, but stuff he brought forward from that period. So, like
Mhm.
sometimes his screams will be deeper, and it has more impact on these amazing songs. So, a lot of my love for the music on here also comes from how great they work live. So that's a big part of why I love these five songs on this album. But yeah, bass comes forward here again. Greg's up there. It's got a great like thrash groove, a little bit punky in structure, but yeah, it's fantastic, right? And like when Chuck shouts like into the pit, and then you
Yeah.
got Alex like shred, like it's just perfect. Great song.
Yeah, and Ken, you want to get into the pit? I know you do.
Yeah, yeah, the song is great. I mean, how could you not like this song? It
Yeah.
dominated by heavy chugs and big choruses, and the tempo changes all the way through. I mean, Billy pretty much said it all.
Yeah.
It's such a great song. And the whole meaning behind Into the Pit's kind of fascinating for me because again, they brought Chuck in to additional lyrics to what Alex and Eric were writing. So, like, it's a whole book. The pit symbolizes this place of the eternal rest where all the individuals are residing there and they're all waiting to be judged. So it's kind of it's kind of interesting. Into the pit, into the pit. It works, and it is one of their live staple songs. I've heard this song many times live, and I think Billy's right. Like the way Chuck sings it these days makes more sense, just with his the more the growly vocal range that he has. I think it works better now than it probably did
Yeah.
way back when. But yeah, it's a classic thrash song all the way through.
For sure. I mean, I don't have much to add. I mean, that's as far as I'm concerned, it's a masterpiece of great writing and just great timing for this in 1988, and to everybody's just. I mean, these bands are just ripping it up, and then to have a song called "Into the Pit," I mean, it's just like it's thrash metal 101. So, Ken, why don't you take us through the shorter kind of instrumental Hypnosis?
Yeah, this is all right. I mean, I guess it's placed fair. I guess it's all right. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's okay. It's a very technical approach to the song. Lots of virtuosity with the guitar leads.
Yeah.
I like there's that one little bit towards the end. There's like kind of a backdrop sound of a moaning wind, which I think is kind of interesting and it adds a little bit of spice to it right at the end. But I think it's all right. I think it's coming right off of Into the Pit. You get a bit of a slow down before you get into the next great classic song. So it's kind of where they're placing it. I don't mind. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good placement for it. It kind of lets you cool down a little bit here before all hell's about to take off again. Billy, your thoughts on Hypnosis? Does it keep you hypnotized?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of like Ken. Like it's okay, right? Like for me, like it feels like an add-on. Like it doesn't feel like it necessarily belongs there. Like I love Alex's guitar playing, and obviously he's very talented. But like for an instrumental by a thrash band, I'd also like the song to get heavy at times and faster at times, and interplay between the different styles and different speeds. You don't quite get that so much here. And then this is actually just guitar.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't have drum. Like the other instrumental, you're gonna at least get some drum and some bass. I mean, these are the two like guitar players. So I would have liked if they did more with the instrumental, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, for me, it doesn't add and it doesn't subtract.
Well, but
Yeah,
don't forget, this is an added on bonus, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds
After
like an added
they
on.
realized they needed
Yeah.
a 40-minute album, they added this on. So
Yeah.
so you're right. It does feel like an add-on.
Yeah, and same with like you said earlier, Billy. The cover, the Aerosmith cover, was not on the original. Wasn't on the.
Oh, we lost
you.
him. So I guess
Either. So it would have been all three of us. Oh, sorry.
Oh, we
Am I
lost
back?
you there, Jim. You just got back. We heard Aerosmith cover, and you left off.
Yeah, I said it's interesting that this is one of our, like, if not, this is our favorite Testament album, all three of us, and it's got a cover and kind of two instrumentals on it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because we usually are pretty we tend to complain a lot when things don't go our way, but man, this album just totally rips. The strong parts are so strong, and Billy, take it away with number 6 with Disciples of the Watch.
Yeah, like I guess just to your point, Jim, like what you were just saying before we go there, that's why I keep saying the 5 songs, because this album's my favorite on the strength of 5 songs, and I don't even like the order of the first song and the last song, so that's another complaint I have. But so Disciples of the Watch, so hands down my absolute favorite Testament song of all time. I just love this song, and actually number 7 7 is going to be my second favorite Testament song of all time. But yeah, it's great. You got the melodic guitar intro. It kind of fits in for what was, even though Hypnosis was an add-on, it kind of, it has a similar feeling for that first minute or so of the song. But then finally it gets going after that first minute. Eric's his riffing's fantastic. Great drumming on this track. Chuck's actually singing faster at times here on this one. And he really emphasizes his vocals in a couple places. It just creates these great vocal hooks. I love the chorus. Like, it's fantastic, right? And Chuck's at times he is using his like deeper voice on this one, which I think is pretty good. There's a killer bass lead at like 245, and then it slows to like a great mid pace, and then Alex does his lead sections, so that's cool. But then like at 350, Chuck's like obey, and then he's using like his early death metal voice. I love that part. Yeah, it's just a fantastic song, like everything about it. Maybe if I'm going to complain, I'd shorten the little intro type part a little bit. But yeah, it's my that's nitpicking. It's my favorite Testament song.
Wicked. And Ken, I would assume it's coming up aces for you.
Oh yeah. This is Chuck Billy. He wrote the song. I like it because it's all about this figure of authority that might be a demonic character, or kind of like a malevolent entity that's commanding his followers to face dire consequences. So you get all these themes with their lyrical content with control, punishment, struggle for power. It's so great. And the disciples, as they're termed, are portrayed like as under the watchful eye of this entity. So it's kind of great. I love the song for that reason. And maybe you could put in like, maybe it's like David Koresh. Maybe he was thinking like cults kind of thing, but it's great. And I think this is for me, like for Chuck on the vocals, it's almost like a precursor to death metal, like where he really starts to flirt with it here, long before we got to the Gathering, or demonic even. But I like how he does emphasize that when he's like screaming out, you're gonna burn on the cross. I love it. That it's just so great. And I would agree with Billy. It will probably be. I think it is for me too. It's probably one of my ultimate favorite Testament songs, and they play it live all the time, and it's great. It's such a great song.
I mean, this is probably Alex's best lead on the whole album.
Yes,
I think so. But
yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. And that low scream too is wicked. And I honestly, I agree with you guys 100%. I mean, it would have been cool though for song 5, to be maybe more of an intro if they could have melded it more, like if they could have teamed it together a little bit better. But to be honest with you, this rips so hard that it just covers up anything else. And it's a wicked song. My question to you guys on the two songs, like Into the Pit and Disciples, wonder why do you think they got more popular? Like, the album was released and they obviously decided to go with Trial by Fire, which is a killer track. But why those two weren't released as singles? Do you guys have any ideas or thoughts maybe on that? Ken?
I don't know. I would think those two should be the two singles.
Yeah.
I think Disciples should have been the actual single on it, but I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I would agree with you. It's a bit of a question mark for me.
My only guess is maybe Disciples is like over 5 minutes, so that may have been a bit much for the single. Whereas Trial is 4 minutes, but yeah.
If you're trying to sell that to radio or whatever, maybe 4 minutes is a lot easier to digest for some people. I don't know.
Yeah, and the long intro maybe on Disciples.
Yeah.
And they probably didn't have the budget for much more than a single at this point, I'm guessing.
I would think so.
And I bet these probably became anthemic favorite tracks of Testament and metal fans, thrash metal fans, as the album, the years, because I mean, they do Practice after this, which was kind of a lot more commercial and a lot more successful. So I think probably a lot of people's first, especially casual fans getting into thrash and Testament, probably jumped in at practice and then probably went backwards. So maybe they gained a lot more momentum that way. I don't know, but it just seemed kind of odd because looking back on it now, I'm thinking, man, if I was the producer on this, that would have been my first pick. You know.
Yeah, or the preacher would have been a great one too. It's my second favorite song, and that would take care of the length argument because that's just barely over 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, you might as well head right into the preacher since you're bringing it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, second favorite track. It's also played quite regularly live. I mean, it's a masterpiece. And like when Chuck shouts the preacher,
Yeah.
and then the song just completely explodes. Like it's one of my favorite moments in a Testament concert because when he does that, the mosh pit takes off like easy. It's so good. Like and then Chuck comes in like in 1906, like the future predicts. Like every one of the lines in this song are so memorable to me. Like they're ingrained in me. Like he has that scream at 134, "Die for the preacher." That's fantastic. And then Chuck's like preach, and then Alex jumps in and completely shreds. There's a lot of these little like cool things in the song. It's amazing. And towards the end when Chuck is screaming "Die for the preacher," he's kind of at the upper end of his range. He's kind of challenging himself, but when he's doing that scream, you can kind of hear at the same time, like, listen to these words I preach, catastrophic lessons they shall teach. Like it's just a great, like, vocally, it's probably the best part of the song. I think Chuck's the hero on this one.
For sure. And Ken, would you would follow the preacher?
Yeah, it's so great. Of course, hell yeah. Like lyrically, again, Chuck's in on this one, right? So he's with Alex working together, because Alex co-wrote the lyrics with him, and it's great because I mean it's all about this preacher who predicts catastrophic events of and sees visions of the future, but nobody believes him. And when you listen to the song, they do reference the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. And the song suggests that the preacher gave these warnings, but they were all ignored before it was too late. So I think it's great. It's got a very ominous tone. It definitely fits in line with the album, with the style of the album, because the whole album has this kind of ominous tone. It's a dark album. Yeah. It's a very dark and foreboding album. It's not pleasant. Like when you think about it, it's not a pleasant album. There's just so much darkness and stuff going on here. So, but Billy pretty much said it all. Like the song, how could you not? Chuck is the star here. Just those screams, the preacher. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I love.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Ken, to your point about being a dark album, like we were talking off.
Yeah, exactly.
That cover,
yes,
like, it is so dark, right?
Yeah,
and it is kind of ominous, like you said, like the music, right? Like like it's really cool, and even the album cover is kind of like dark and ominous too. So yeah.
That's what I always. That's why I think this is a perfect album. All the songs are really compacted in a great way.
Yeah, sorry, Jim, I interrupted you. Apologize.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say, and I love the solo at around the 2-minute mark is wicked, this track too. But yeah, I agree with you guys. Nothing else to say on this. Chuck is the star on this one, and it is one of my favorite. It's one of my all-time favorite Testament tracks, and that's why I love this album, because they're so the highs are so high, and this is definitely one of them. So we lead into the cover. Ken, you're up at bat with Nobody's Fault to see what an Aerosmith cover. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we all know why it was added to pad out the album. Okay, so putting that aside, I don't think it's a bad song. I was listening to the Aerosmith version as well to compare. They're really faithful. It looks like they followed it to a T. It's just a bit more of a metallic version. Mm-hmm. I don't mind Chuck's vocals. Sometimes I find that he's a little out of place, or he sounds a little out of place with this one, because I guess he's trying to replicate what Steven Tyler was singing with the actual song. But I don't mind it. I think it's okay. Like I know we've always talked about how these bands never pick the right cover song, and you're always wondering why the fuck is that on this album. On this one here, I actually think I can see why I don't have a problem with it being on the album. So for me, it's just all right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe I'm glad they kind of went to something a little more odd like Aerosmith, and maybe not a typical Aerosmith song like they could have done Mama Kin or something. Like, I'm glad they did something maybe a little off the Richter scale a little bit and make it kind of their own. I don't mind it.
Mhm.
You know, Billy, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I actually don't know the song well
Yeah,
because
me neither.
to this day I listen to the original vinyl every time and it's not on there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right. So like the only way I got to know this song was back in the days of the Discman.
yeah.
When after the Walkman was over and we had the
yeah,
Discman, and I went and got everything on CDs. So then I'm like, what the heck is this? Right? Like it was a later version of it. But yeah, I think I agree with Ken. Like it's okay. Like
yeah,
it's not bad. Like they didn't like do something drastically different with it. It's a metallic version of the Aerosmith song, so I think it's fine. I mean, would I rather that 4 minutes to be their own material? Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what we got. So that's not included in the big five.
Mhm.
On this.
No, for sure it's not.
No, I can agree with you there. It's just, and I'm glad though, as much as I know we already touched on it about the last song, we don't, I'm glad they didn't end off on this anyways. They
Oh
kind of,
no, no, that'd be awful. Be terrible.
yeah, because I think it would have, the flow of the album, I mean, you're coming out of the Preacher, your hitting's nobody's fault, which is, man, okay. And like
Yeah,
you guys said on the original, see, I always had the original cassette. That's it
yeah,
there. And obviously on there. So it was always
yeah.
part of my experience.
So
But
Tim,
I'll
it
be
was on the original cassette.
Yes, it
yeah,
is. Yeah,
this is
Okay.
the OG cassette, and it's on there. Same thing with Hypnosis.
yeah.
It is on there. This is the 1988 release, and yeah, it's on there. So kind
Hmm.
of weird. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It was just not on the vinyl. And when I was doing my background check, that's the first thing that came up was like, oh, it wasn't on the OG vinyl. And I knew you guys would know that because obviously you guys have we all had the original vinyl at some point, and Billy still has it. So
Yeah.
for sure.
And
Yeah,
I
it's
it's
do
pretty
not
too.
because
cool.
the
But
album with that is still like 40 minutes, so that fits
Yeah,
on the vinyl. Like I don't
yeah,
get it.
I
Oh,
don't know.
weird. But Billy, take away number 9, A Day of Reckoning. We kind of realign ourselves here back to a good solid real thrash track. Go ahead.
Yeah,
so Day of Reckoning, like not bad. Like I actually think this song sort of sets up Practice What You Preach. I could see
yeah,
like there's greater melody here. Like Chuck is actually his vocals more melodic. I could actually hear what he was going to do on Practice What You Preach. So I think that's pretty cool. Like a nice heavy Testament groove. It's a bit less, it's not as much like the others, right? It's a bit more of an outlier, I find, from that sense. It's not as heavy and old school sounding. As I said, it sounds more like practice material, but I mean, Eric and Alex are still great. And then the best part is the ending, right? Those last 30 or 45 seconds with the accelerating aggression to close out the song. That's kind of cool, but it doesn't make my big top five. Like I think it's solid and it's cool. But that's where the last two tracks are odd. To end with an instrumental and Day of Reckoning for me wouldn't have been a closer. Like you've got Disciples and Preacher in a row. I would have put I would have put one of those two at the end, but
That's a good point. Ken, what's your thoughts on The Day of Reckoning?
well, I totally agree with Billy. I think this song is like setting up what you're going to get on
Yeah,
Practice. I mean, Chuck wrote the lyrics, so it's all about societal collapse and the consequences that follow after with like an oppressive rule. So, I mean, like he's warning about the idea that there's going to be a reckoning. Humans are going to suffer. So it is kind of a precursor to what you're going to hear on Practice. I would agree with that. I think it's a good song. I mean, it doesn't blow my socks off either, but I do like it. I actually like Chuck's vocals here. They're pretty clean for the most part. He doesn't really go into like any major growls. He just sort of clean things mostly all the way through it. Again, he always sounds like James Hetfield to me. I've always made that comparison. It's like, fuck, he sounds like James. It's very, very similar at times. But yeah, I think I agree with Billy too at the end. The ending is great. I love the whole Chuck shouts, you're all gonna pay. I love it. It's like it's got a little bit of an ominous tone at the end. But yeah, it's a pretty good song.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it all. I find at the start of it, maybe to midway through the song, it's almost more of a sludgy thrash with clean vocals. But then as it starts to pick up and starts to get a bit faster, definitely hits that more non-sludgy thrash groove. But I mean, I agree with you guys. I think probably The Preacher would have been a great one to end off on. And, because, well, Ken, why don't you take away the song number 10 here with Musical Death, A Dirge, the long instrumental.
I like this better than I like Hypnosis.
Yeah.
I think it's the song's kind of like thought out a bit more. I'm not too sure why it's the closing number. Obviously you're showing off Alex's his skills as a guitarist. I mean, he has the first solo and then Eric does the second solo, which is all right. I don't mind it. It ends the album off, but I would have wanted a banger. I would have wanted a song that, like, maybe even like Disciples or something like that, like to really emphasize the thrash, the style of it for me. But I think it's okay. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's better than Hypnosis.
Billy, what's your thoughts? I kind of got the feeling from your previous comments, but
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I think I already said that. And I agree with Ken. I like it better than Hypnosis.
Yeah.
But like it's again, like for me, it's too much. And I love Alex, right? I not only like Testament Alex, I like his jazz band. But it's just too much Alex for a Testament record, right? I mean, basically the band doesn't even come in till like 2.5 minute mark, right? So there's like nobody, and then it's just like light, like drum work or like bass work, and then it finally gets a little heavy at 3 minutes, but that lasts a couple seconds, right? Like it's a thrash band. It's still like 88. Like why doesn't their instrumentals sound like Angel, Death Angel,
Death Angel, yeah.
right? The ultra violence, like it's cool. Like I love slow, like nice guitar playing, but bring in the heavy parts too, right? Like it's a thrash band. So that's why I find these solos, they kind of feel out of place for this album. Maybe they would, I think they fit maybe a bit better on Practice. But I mean, they had plenty of material for Practice, but even that, they'd still be a bit out of place, I think. So yeah, that's my biggest issue, right? Like it doesn't feel like it belongs on the album.
That's a good point. And I find it a little chaotic with the mix of the album. Like you brought up a great point with the ultra violence. I mean, that was what, a 10-minute instrumental, correct?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, and then they were able to walk around. They were able to, and it really fit the album so well. Yeah, I agree with you there. And both you guys, that it's not bad, but it's also, I just find it a little out of place, a little chaotic, and maybe something that I would have stuffed it in around song 6, put Disciples as the end or The Preacher on the end. I think it would have had a little bit more punch to it, but what can you do, I guess? But still, I mean, like I was saying, and all three of us, I mean, have really hit this point. All three of us have hit this point. The highs are so high that any lows on it covers it. It just erases it for us. Because usually the instrumentals can go either way for all three of us. I mean, we're a little bit more forgiving on instrumentals because we like them usually, but the covers tend to be a bit of a sticky point with us.
Well, I did read. I was reading a little about Alex talking about this album, and from what he was saying, it sounds like they did this album on the fly. They weren't used to recording that way, so maybe and obviously that whole contractual thing where they needed 40 minutes and they didn't have it, so that could play a part of why the album's a little disjointed
Yeah.
parts. Like I can see that, but you're still learning. You have to understand that they were still kids.
Oh yeah.
They're all they're all like in their early 20s when they record this album. So I mean, like you have to understand that they're still learning on the fly. So I could be very forgiving on this album for those few minor discretions for me, because what outweighs that is just the guitar playing of Alex. The guy's an incredible player for sure. Being one of Joe Satriani's students, and obviously you hear that virtuosity in his style. So he's for like a lead guitarist for thrash. He's a cut above the rest. I really think he is.
No, I mean, I would argue he's a cut above Satriani now.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like with his jazz playing and all that
Yeah.
stuff, he's at a total new level.
Well, he's great. Yeah, the guy is a fantastic. I'm glad he came back to the band. I'm very, very happy that he actually decided to rejoin them.
Yeah.
Because they missed him when he was out.
Yeah. And I'm guessing he had this stuff already written, right? Like that's why it sounds like the Alex show. They needed something quick to put on. They were like his doodles on the guitar, so they probably just layered it on. That's why we don't get the heavier version of the stuff.
And it's interesting because the songwriting and the musicianship, as well as as Chuck's voice, from the legacy to this is a really great. There's a lot of growth there for sure. I mean, their debut album I love, but this just is so much of a step up. And I mean, and I love Practice. I mean, what are you guys? I mean, we're eventually probably down the line, maybe episode 165 or something, we'll do Practice. But like, what are your guys' thoughts? Like, I mean, we all put this above Practice. I find Practice for me, great album, but just I find it a little bit. I just find it. Again, the highs are even higher than that album.
Well, Practice, though, lyrically, it's a better album. I think the lyrics are, and I know we did a podcast on another unmentioned podcast, the three of us before, but on Practice. But Practice, to me, lyrically, it's a lot stronger of a release. Like the songs are a lot more tighter. And there's a commercial sound to it, but for whatever reasons, Practice is number 2 for me, right after New Order. I can't. It's got to be there for me because I just love the. I guess because it was the first album that I really got into when I got into Testament was that album. I bought it and I loved it, and I've always put it in high regard. So I always put it number 2.
Yeah, it's number 3 for me too.
Same here.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Like so I think we're all agree.
Yeah. As a whole, the way the album, like I may not love every single song, but I love almost every one. Yeah. I like the diversity, the different style of songs, and it's great. And the material is incredibly strong. It's not as heavy. It may be not quite as aggressive. It might be more commercial sounding, but it's still amazing. So I love it.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Wicked. Great conversation, guys, on the album. And it's just, I mean, this is a thrash masterpiece. And wow, I'm so glad we got to talk about it for sure. So why don't we slide over to the part of our show where we're going to talk about our top 10 follow-up. So sophomore albums, we came up with that to our thrash or metal thrash. You had the debut albums, which and then you come out with the sophomore, their second albums. So who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So, I stuck to thrash. So it's all thrash bands for me. So I don't really have them in any order. So I'll just run them off.
Yeah.
So, Onslaught's The Force. I love that album. Power from Hell is definitely very punk influenced, but when they did the Force, it was much more thrashier, much more darker lyrics, and obviously when you look at some of the song titles like Let There Be Death, Metal Forces, Fight the Beast, it's obviously they're looking at Slayer because Slayer had many songs of that ilk. So I think the Force is a better album than Power from Hell. And then I'm gonna Megadeth. I have to put Peace Cells on here because I hate the first album. I don't like it. I've never been a fan.
No,
No, I never liked it.
I don't like it either.
I
you
always
guys
thought
like
that
the
Peace.
boots?
What's that?
These boots were made for walking.
No, I think it's an awful album. I just don't like it. It's I don't know. It's just not for me. I think Peace Cells was when the band found their style. You have Chris Poland,
Yeah.
and I love Chris Poland. And it's such a great album. It's just it's a masterpiece for me. It's one of my favorite. I mean, I know Rust in Peace is probably most people's favorite, but for
Yeah.
me, Peace Cells is the start of I guess their real thrash career when you think about it. And then I have Heathen Victims of Deception. Again, the first album is all right, but I think I know we did a podcast on it, but Victims is their coming out party. Like it's a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest like progressive thrash metal albums ever. And I know we talked about that to death, but it's a better album all the way through. And then I went to Germany, so I went with Grinder. Dawn of the Living, the first album, I think was kind of all right. It wasn't really 100% thrash. It had kind of a metal feel, rock metal feel. But Dead End, I love Dead End. I think that's a fantastic album. Doesn't get a lot of talk. I love the album cover. All the songs are great. Unfortunately the band is no longer here, but yeah, if you want to hear a better album, listen to Dead End. That album it's killer. And then I'll go back to Death Row. I mean, Raging Steel, we've talked about this as well. The first album was all right, but I thought Raging Steel was a fantastic album. I know, Billy, we talked about this Deception Ignored, and that's a great album too. I love that. But Raging Steel, I don't know. When that came out, I was like, wow, what a thrasher. What a great album. Totally like that album. And then, of course, I'm going to put Dark Angel, Darkness Descends. I think that's better than the first album. I thought the first album was kind of okay, but I felt that they sort of came into their own on Darkness Descends. It's an album I still like to play. It's heavier. It's much more aggressive. The songs are great, so I put that on my list. Then I have Destruction. Now I love the first album. It's raw. There's lots. It has its moments, but I think they sort of kind of upped the ante when it came to Eternal Devastation. I think that album is just so killer. It's so vicious and so rabid. So I think it's way better than the debut. Same with Creator. Again, Pleasure to Kill. It's a way better album than Endless Pain, which is it's all right. But it was what we launched our Thrashcast podcast. So it's a masterpiece. It's a great album.
And it's still our best viewed podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it launched the Thrashcast. It was such a great show. We love that album. We all love that album.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Brain and Disease. I can't stand the first Anthrax album. I don't like it at all. Not a fan of it. I think they come into their own when Joey joins the band. And Spraying the Disease is such a great album. It's one of those albums that I still play very often to this day. I like all the songs, even though the songs are sort of on the more thrashier side, but I just think it's a way better album than what they had on the first. Mm-hmm. And then Metallica. I mean, I know Jimmy might argue with me. I know I see your.
I wouldn't put it down. I would not put Metallica on my list.
I have to because I think Ride is a better album for me. Like I like the first album a lot, but I think Ride I just like it's got a classier sound for me. It's much more refined. They've started getting into their style. I don't know. I just always preferred. I just think Ride's a better album, but to each his own, right?
Yeah,
that's my top 10.
Wicked. Well, we had lots of duplicates there.
I figured we would. Yeah.
What's your top 10, Billy? And don't say Metallica. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I don't have Metallica. I mean, you guys know me. I like the next two are my favorite. But I love Ride the Lightning, and I'll agree with Ken that it's way better than sorry, Jim. But like these are literally I guess my favorite 10. They're in a rough order, right? When we get to the top 5, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how do you pick them every day? It'll be different, but
yeah.
Number 10, I'm cheating. I have a tie. They're both technical thrash, so I think that that makes it a pair. So I'm doing Toxic Think This
Oh, good.
and
Yeah.
DBC Dead Brain Cells
Cool.
Universe.
Oh, no.
Both bring like the technicality to like a whole new level on their second album. So for me, that's a style of music I love. So those two, and they've appeared on my list in so many shapes and forms. Number 9, we did a podcast on it. Tankard, Chemical Invasion, my favorite Tankard album. It's yeah, just a great German thrash album. Number 8, Paradox, Heresy, from 1989. So at this point, it is. I mean, this is a bit of a mix, but it still has some definite thrash components, but also speed metal and a hint of power metal. But it just the songs are so damn memorable. Like I love it as much today as I did in 1989. Number 7, another staple of my list, Watchtower, Control and Resistance. Sadly, it's the second album and also the last. We only have 2 full-length albums, so that's a bit disappointing, but I did like it more than the first. This is the only common one I had with Ken. Heathen, Victims of Deception. He already talked about it. And then number 5, Sodom, Persecution Mania from 87. Like I love this album. I mean, it's not as mainstream or refined as Agent Orange, which would come next, but it's good, like in a raw way. Then I've got number 4, Forbidden, Twisted into Form. I mean, just one of the best singers in thrash of all time. Number 3, Slayer, Hell Awaits. This is probably the earliest album, 1985 on the list. But I don't know. I mean, for me, like I love this. A big step up from Show No Mercy, I think. And it's a close second. Rain and Blood's first for me, but it's a close second. This and South of Heaven. Number 2's an overlap with Ken, Creator, Pleasure to Kill. And then I put The Testament, The New Order, number 1, just on the strength of those 5 songs again. That's my list.
Wicked. Well, my list is pretty much almost done between your 2 lists, but I started off with Dark Angel, Darkness Descends.
Yeah.
I agree with Ken on that. It was really good. I threw in for my next one a Canadian band. I didn't, I wanted to do Voivod, but I love War and Pain so much. It's the same thing with Metallica for me. I agree with everything you guys have said. Lightning on a level of improvement of sound, writing, everything. It's probably a better album, but I wouldn't put it on there just out of spite because I love Kill 'Em All so much. I felt the same thing about Voivod. So I put Razor, Evil Invaders. I mean, I love that album. That album was the one that got me into Razor. So, I mean, it was such a cool album. And probably if Razor has a commercial album, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Number 8, I went with Flotsam and Jetsam, No Place.
Yeah, good one.
I love the first album too, Doomsday, but this was just such, again, and I mean, I guess, this throws my whole Metallica view out the window with Kill 'Em All, because I mean, it would be kind of, I guess, the same in that I'm taking the other side where I'm saying, No Place is probably better because it's much more updated, but I understand where you guys are coming from with the Metallica part. My number 7, I put Metal Church, The Dark.
Yeah.
I found that one a lot more solid, even though I do like the debut. This one here was a lot more 1986. I mean, this is a band that should have been a lot bigger than they were, and kind of pisses me off. But I love that album. That album's my first kind of slide into that band. Number 6, same as Billy, Slayer, Hell Awaits. I love the rawness of Show No Mercy, but it's just the difference between Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits for me was just so much more better sound, better production. And then, I know you guys know my favorite album is South of Heaven. Rain and Blood's probably, this and Rain and Blood are probably tied for second. And I'm talking points of points here. But I love that album. It's got one of my favorite songs on it. Number 5, all 3 of us had it. Victims of Deception. I mean, Heathen, there was such a difference. I mean, that this album was just so momentous that it's got to be on pretty much everybody's list. And I mean, that's a kick-ass album. You can't, disagree with that. And obviously not because all three of us picked it. Ken, I went with you. I know when we did our Anthrax podcast, I think I said that I like the Neil Turbin, but I got to be honest with you. Since we did that podcast, I've been listening. I've made a point of putting more Anthrax into my diet. So, and I love Spreading the Disease. I mean, I got it that I have it on CD. That album really, really does kick ass, and it is miles ahead of the debut. It's just better solid. They're more of a band on that album, and it definitely shows, I think. So, anyways, where am I at here? Obviously, I went with the New Order Testament. That's my number 3. Number 2, Creator, Pleasure to Kill, same as you guys. That's a kick-ass album. I mean, I think I probably got in on this, or maybe even a little later on Extreme Aggression, but this is my favorite Creator album. Extreme Aggression, probably up there in my top 2 or 3. And my number 1's got to be Megadeth. I mean, the difference, I like the debut album, and I don't like the remaster version. I don't like the cover art on it. I don't know.
It's terrible.
But I mean, the original cover art's kind of cheesy on the first Megadeth album. On Killing Is My Business. It's kind of raw, but if you're gonna I don't like it when they totally change it. And I find the cover art of the remastered version or the redone version isn't that good. But yeah, the difference between the debut album and Peace Sells is just holy shit. It's mind blowing. I mean, that's probably one of the most obvious ones there. I mean, it's just, but you could, again, then you fall into heavy metal, the Judas Priest debut versus the second album, Scorpions, all these bands. There's been a lot of huge bands out there that their debut album was a little bit off kilter from maybe the rest of their catalog or what have you. But that's my list in a nutshell. But no, I wouldn't put Metallica on there only because I love the debut album so much.
Well, I figured that, yeah.
I totally agree with what you guys say, and that is, I mean, let's be honest, even the third out, Puppets, it goes good, better, and then it just goes right up to, I would never admit that like that, but those first 4 albums, I mean, holy shit, it just keeps getting better, better, better. And then even the Black Album, I mean, as albums go, a good album's a good album. It was a great album, and it was a stratospherical album, but not a thrash album in my mind, as we talked about before. But I can get it totally how you guys are, and I think the same way. I mean, yeah, Master was even that much more better production than Lightning. Lightning definitely was miles ahead of the original Kill 'Em All. So definitely, but great list, guys.
Well, Jim, you know what's funny? On Facebook, you commented on the Metal Voice about Hardwired, and you said, there's like a couple of good songs. I was like, oh, I actually like that album. I believe it or not, I actually like that album. I don't have a problem with Hardwired.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that between Hardwired and the one with the coffin on it there,
Death Magnetic.
Yeah, Death Magnetic.
There is a good album, like a true Metallic album. If you cut away, like Spit Out the Bone on that is a great track. There's some great tracks on there. I know. Sometimes I'm just such a dick when it comes to Metallica. I don't know why. And you know what? My favorite band all time, Metallica, but only from those first 4 albums. It's just so sad. Billy, you were going to say something.
Yeah, so 2 interesting observations. I thought this came close to my list, but it just fell out. So coming off of last week's podcast, I thought we'd see Forward to Termination creep into the list. So that didn't show up. And then one other one that, I mean, for me, this is not one of my favorite by any means, but nobody had Overkill taking over.
That's true.
That was kind of interesting. I thought at least one of us would have that.
I think I'm more drawn to the Years of Decay, I think.
Me too. Yeah,
me too. That's where I like.
That's what killed me off. But you know what? We're going to have to do one of our top 10s will have to be a third album. I guess we would consider that a senior album. I don't know. but that would be pretty cool. But yeah, like I was thinking more along the lines like you, Billy, where I was like, yeah, this is better, and then I was like, I totally missed Forbidden, and I should have had Forbidden on my list. As soon as you said, I was like, damn it, that's true. That's all.
Well, I missed Blossom, and that should have been on my list.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
I
better
mean,
album.
it was just there's too many, right? Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
you can, like you could have did a 25. I could have did 25 in my sleep.
sure.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, we could have did that.
Well, guys, here we are in closing at the end of the show. Do you guys got anything? Billy, did you want to quickly talk about next week's show?
Yeah, I always do this. I have like a mental break when you throw it to me there. We're doing a Demolition Hammer, Epidemic of Violence.
Nice.
That's gonna be a good one.
That's a wicked one. Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny, we just talked about it, and Jim's like, Billy, you want to do it? I'm like,
Yeah, we should have had. We
But
should
I
have
was
had
thinking about that for this show. I was like, maybe I want to do that because I believe it or not, I just reordered the CD. I didn't realize I didn't have it. So I got it delivered, I think, a week or a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And I've been playing the hell out of it. It's wicked.
It's a good album. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have all their albums, Billy?
I have the first two. Like, I think those are the only two I really need. But
Yeah.
The third one is not that
Yeah.
good.
I was trying to politely say that.
Yeah, of course
I
you
was
will.
saying not good.
Well, sometimes you just have to tell it like it is, dude.
There you go. Great show, fellas. With that, I guess we'll end it off and say good night to everybody. And thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
Right,
Good
cool.
night.
Night.